getting to work. It's about the creation of an evidence-informed learning tools to enhance labor force participation options for people living with HIV in Canada. I'm presenting on behalf of Kathy, who not only put together the presentation and the things that I'm going to be reading to you here, but also she was a terrific lead on this project for many years and working in collaboration with a lot of people in this room. For those of you who know Kathy as a presenter, will immediately realize that having me to speak on her behalf does a serious disservice to all of you, to every single one of you, without exception. So what I'm trying to do here, what I want to avoid doing with this presentation is what Dana Day-Lewis was trying to do to the Irish in Gangs of New York. So there'll be a lot of butchering. I'm going to be butchering this material, there's no doubt about it. But at least I'm going to try to avoid all the blood splashing and all that stuff. My apologies in advance. That's my way of apologizing in advance. So this is a project team. This study included university researchers as well as our community partner, CIHRRC. The study took direction from an advisory committee made up of representatives of occupational vocational therapy, AIDS service organizations, people engaged in policy work, and obviously people living with HIV. The study was a knowledge synthesis and translation study that took place in 3 distinct phases, with funding from 2 CIHRRC grants. As part of the scoping review and synthesis work that began in 2007, members of the team produced a conceptual framework to enhance labor force participation for people living with HIV in Canada, as well as a series of fact sheets and summary to summarize the framework for the distinct target audiences. The second phase involved the presentation of the framework through webinars and ASO staff, vocational rehab workers, human resources professionals, and we also solicited feedback from these groups to refine the products and measure the impact of the tools in the day-to-day work of these different audiences. And the third phase involved the creation of a learning resource for people engaged in employment work, specifically with people living with HIV, as well as an outreach strategy to disseminate the material. So I'll walk you through the 3 different phases in a little bit more detail. So we systematically, for the first phase, the synthesis and the initial products, we systematically searched the standard electronic databases from 1980 to 2008, from over 11,000 abstracts, titles and abstracts. We have 243 papers met our inclusion criteria. We also searched the great literature, obtaining over 40 additional documents for a total of 285 papers. And then we extracted data from all these papers and sorted them into broad conceptual themes. We then developed the framework based on these themes with the assistance of the advisory committee, and also discussed the framework with professionals, including employers, insurers, policymakers, vocational rehab workers, ASOs. We also conducted 2 focus groups with people living with HIV to make sure that the developing framework contained areas that were important to them. And then after we did the framework, we also created a booklet and also a fact sheets, and also published the scoping review in AIDS and behavior. When I'm saying we, I'm really saying they. I was just part of the advisory committee at this stage. So I just get exhausted just by reading this. This is a colossal enterprise. I've done scoping reviews, system reviews, I've done some qualitative research as well. This research team took it up to themselves to merge the 2 most labor-intensive methodologies in research, in the history of research. Systematic reviews on one side and the data that comes from qualitative interviews on the other. So the fact that they did this is just a testament to how terrific this group is. Just wanted to provide some commentary on the side. This on the left-hand side, there's the 2 pages of the framework, and up front you can see the what we call the HIV guide that highlights the key personal, social, and structural factors that influence labor force participation, including economic, environmental factors, structural factors such as homophobia, racism, and poverty, the characteristics of work, personal factors that influence labor force participation like age and work history, the meaning of work for an individual, and the episodic nature of HIV. And on the left are the 3 fact sheets that were developed to target each audience separately. So on the one hand, we have fact sheet developed for ASOs and people living with HIV. There's another one for employers, and there's another one for policymakers. The phase 2 involved the production and delivery of 3 webinars with key audiences, and a total of 49 people participating in the webinars, and the whole idea was to discuss the key elements of the framework in this context. Following the webinars, we developed educational emails that use case-based examples to generate key messages, prompting questions, and recommended resources that we collected along the way. The idea was to prompt participants to use the framework in their everyday work. We also held a focus group after the webinar to assess the degree to which the framework was useful, as well as where the barriers for its use. We heard that the materials provoked participants to have new conversations with clients and co-workers and influence program designing one vocational rehabilitation workplace. These are an example of the email updates that we used, showing an introduction, a case scenario, and a section with prompting questions to elicit discussion and suggestion of resources for people to follow up. The last phase was the creation of a problem-based learning resource to highlight key issues related to labor force participation for people living with HIV. This phase began with a focus group. This feels like it's just a 5-year focus group with little breaks in between to get more funding and target a different target audience that was missed in the previous one. It's really well informed. So this is another focus group with people specifically. This phase was more dedicated to the people who are actually working on employment issues with people living with HIV more directly. The key issue that came up as necessary to include in any learning resource were issues around disclosure on HIV and confidentiality in the workplace, stigma, uncertainty about living income support programs, self-assessment and self-management, peer support and navigation, and success stories as well. So that's how we designed the learning resource. The final version of this was produced in partnership with our advisory committee and team members. This included 4 modules that highlighted the various facilitators of return to work for PHAs, as well as employment experiences unique to HIV, to highlight those components that are unique to people living with HIV. The modules are designed to be completed in small groups and include objectives, case studies, discussion questions, key content, and a section of advice from experts. And we have both a print version and an online version, which is now housed at CIHRRC and connected to Katie to offer through their other centers. So, and also we translate these documents into French to reach a national audience in Canada. On the left is a screenshot of the online version, and on the right is a page of the print module, so just so you have a sense of how they look like. And our next step is to work with an outreach strategist who is currently disseminating the materials to national and regional networks of HIV community services, employment and human resources organizations, and educational institutions. As I mentioned, the print materials are now available through Katie's Ordering Center, and the electronic versions are available to download off the CIHRRC website. That's the website, and I really encourage you to take a look at it. I could be spending hours here talking about those, and it's very, very clear once you get into these materials, but what we're trying to convey here. There's a lot of work that went into these materials, and we're now hoping that the UHTN is gonna, we're going to be counting on Francisco to lend us a hand on how to make these materials even more user-friendly to reach wider audiences, and how to improve and refine on the online delivery of this with video, the production of some videos and some interesting KTE strategies that we're hoping to be able to do in the next few months. So this is a group of participants. The acknowledgements for the participants are, people that are participating in the 40,000 focus groups that took place here, and all the members of the advisory committee, etc., and the funding from the 2 operating grants from the CIHR.